In Dubai Expo, Israel presents new technologies to help the disabled. With us from Dubai is Mr. Michal Seror from the KRGNF, and in Israel, Michal Seror from Startup Nation Central. Hello, Michal. Let's start with you, and Nave will join us in a minute. What will people get and see there at the Israeli Pavilion with these new technologies, Michal?
So basically in the Israeli Pavilion, and whoever is traveling to Dubai, a great, big, very inspirational celebration there for the day, which is a whole month for people with disabilities. Startup Nation Central, together with KRGNF and Access Israel, joined forces with two ministries, the Ministry of Regional Cooperation and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to commemorate this day, bringing two big delegations, one of them 20 Paralympic athletes and also people with disabilities, alongside technologies for these people with disabilities, 5 of them, and bring them all together to Dubai, which is a natural place to have this big celebration of all the solutions that we can have around disability.
In Dubai, tell us about what's planned over there inside the pavilion.
Actually, it was a remarkable opportunity to really showcase Israeli innovation in the field of assistive tech with the people, they call it people of determination here in Dubai. And the reaction were amazing to see people not just talking about technology, as to experiencing really how the point of view of people of determination really use this to day-to-day life. And it was really amazing to see all the people that usually coming from countries that doesn't have necessarily relations with Israel, and see this Israel innovation in their to all people to see and share experience.
Right. Michal, give us some examples. What kind of technologies are being invented and showed over there?
So we brought with us 5 technologies from Israel. These entrepreneurs, it was actually their first time coming to the UAE as well. One of them was called Voice It, for example, which is a medical technology for communicating via voice, what we call automatic speech recognition. That was Voice It. We also brought along Eye Control, which is an AI-based motion control system that looks at where the eyes of a person is looking in order to understand what they're trying to communicate. So it's very effective for trying to understand menus or kind of looking through for people that are not able to communicate verbally, obviously. We also brought Resymmetry, which is an AI-based motion control system that analyzes wheelchair seating and changes the position to accommodate the person that is sitting in it. Which is extremely helpful for people that are sitting in a wheelchair for long hours and need to readjust their positioning, and also to enable them to move even though they're in a wheelchair. And also A-Check, which is a panoramic 3D photography system that identifies accessibility obstacles in a range of terrains, including urban environments, and really calculates what is needed to adjust that space in order to help people with a disability to make it more accessible for them. So for fantastic startups and really determined entrepreneurs in kind of that startup nation in the do-good area, and making a difference in people's lives for people with people of determination.
Right. This kind of technologies are expensive and maybe less commercial than others. Who is funding actually those startups, those new inventions, Michal?
So the funding is a difficult part, because a lot of these entrepreneurs are doing this out of their personal experience, or they've found a place in their lives where they understood that this is much needed. So sometimes government funding, but very often it's what we call bootstrap. So they're funding themselves, and kind of to a point where they get investors from various backgrounds and areas helping them and supporting their progress and as they develop. Not an easy task. It's we talk about the startup nation and big funds, and we see very big rounds of investments. There are areas still within the startup nation which is harder to raise money in, and this is one of these areas which we kind of have to be aware of, that these entrepreneurs need help and support, and as much kind of putting their name out there as possible.
Right. So Naveh, you're from the JNF. Are you part of the funding, actually?
We're trying to basically give the stage to these technologies and promote them. Obviously, it's a huge stage to be here in Expo. And part of what is KRGNF is doing here is bringing the players together and creating cooperation, specifically here also in the JCC region. So yeah, it's part of the whole picture.
Right. So do you see any interest already there from locals or other visitors at the Expo?
Definitely. We are KRGNF. During the 6 months, we have different verticals that we're presenting in different topics. For example, agriculture and food security, water, energy, climate crisis. We're doing different things and different thematic weeks. There's a lot of interest. It's like the new girl in the block, and everybody's getting interested of seeing, hearing what is all about. So yeah, it's a lot of interest from all around.
Right, Michal, describe the relationships these days between Israeli technology and the UAE and the Gulf states.
So I think there's a lot of interest, obviously, from both sides. It's the initial phases of courtship where we're kind of learning to work together. And Startup Nation Central has spent the last year and a bit since the Abraham Accords kind of creating the right ground to establish these business relationships. We hosted 70 delegates before the gates closed from the Emirates here in Israel, together with the UAE Embassy and the Ministry of Economy. And so, as you can understand, it will take a little bit of time to kind of build this relationship and make it flourish. And it's a matter of kind of slowly creating those such collaborations such as this together with the JNF Kakal, creating that bridge so that Emiratis can learn and discover new Israeli technologies, and Israeli technologies and entrepreneurs in general will learn what it means to do business with the UAE and meet their counterparts on the other side. So it's kind of like these initial phases of a courtship, which we see it evolving and starting to flourish as time goes by.
Any specific fields that you see are of interest to the newcomers from the Gulf?
So definitely the areas of fintech, financial technologies is a very big one. The UAE being a hub for financial institutions and trade is definitely something that they find very interesting, and very strong technologies, as we all know. Definitely cybersecurity, which is always a top for Israeli innovation, but also the areas of agriculture and what we call desert tech. So technologies that help resolve the issues that evolve from being in an arid land, such as these two countries, are very big there. Water technologies, obviously a big interest, and climate technologies too. The UAE has placed a big fund looking at climate technologies and what is needed in order to reduce or resolve the issue of climate. And they're kind of peeking at Israel to understand where we play there and what kind of solutions we might have. And those would probably be the forefront runners, and more to come, obviously.
Right. Well, Michal and Naveh, thank you very much and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
It's a very important thing.